Haha, that looks really cute.
Oh, I love it!
Welcome to the Mike Cassidy Photography Podcast.
Thank you, big voice in the sky. My name is Mike Cassidy, and I'm a boudoir photographer from New Jersey, and this is my show. I get to talk to some of the best photographers in the world to find out how they got started, what sparks their creativity, and what hurdles they've had to overcome to get their businesses going. Along the way, we'll probably have a few laughs, but I'm here to have in-depth conversations about all kinds of things you've always wanted to know from the best out there. So stay tuned. You never know what you may learn.
Allow myself to introduce myself. My name is Richie Cunningham, and this is my wife, Oprah.
Grr, baby, grr. Greetings. My name is indeed Richie Cunningham, and I'm your neighbor. And I have no idea where my wife is. Just a short announce today. It's hard for me to believe there's only a few weeks left in this summer, and I'm desperately trying to keep up with my beach photos and not fall too far behind. I'm trying. Do my best. You know, these summers are like a mad dash, and there is no way I could keep this pace up year-round, and kudos to anybody who does. I would drive myself crazy. Well, you know, like crazier than I already am. Like ready for a vacation. I had one interesting thing happened this week, and I'm debating it in my brain. I had somebody contact me who wanted to do a few short boudoir videos. No photos, just videos. So my brain stopped for a moment to compute that, and wanted to get this woman on the phone and get some more details. So I talked to her for a bit, and she sent me a link of something she found to use as a guideline. And when I'm on the phone, I don't confirm or deny anything about this. You know, my first thought is more of a why not than a no when someone presents me with something like that. And I have to do some work here, though. I've done video clips in the past for clients, but not as the primary thing, you know, just like a fun, cute little like a teaser video on my gimbal and smartphone. I don't really have a pricing structure for videos, so much time involved in putting videos together, you know, and I'm not really a pro. So I've been debating in my brain what to do here and how to work through this, and not kind of any accomplished videographer. So this is my so-called dilemma at the moment, figuring out what to do. You know, I've always wanted to learn some video skills, so maybe this is a good opportunity by throwing myself into the fire. So we'll see. I'll let you know what happens. But today, we are all going to learn a thing or two from my guest. She is a boudoir and women's portrait photographer with about 10 years of experience, and we had a great talk about pricing strategies in portrait and boudoir photography, along with other steps that you can implement to start making an increase in your RPC, your revenue per client. We also talked about why so many photographers make a mess of their pricing. And you do it. You know you do it. You way overcomplicate things, and you just got to stop it. Just stop it. My guest today is the accomplished Tanya Smith. And one thing I can be certain of is after listening to this, you're going to want more. You're going to want more Tanya. And you can. You can listen to Tanya on her Profitable Portraits podcast, which is good. I listen to it. And she also offers her Profitable Portraits Academy for those looking to really get into that next level mode of operating your business. So that's definitely worth checking out. So stick around and get your cold brewed coffee going and embiggen yourself a bit today. Embiggen? I don't even really think that's a real word. But anyway, as always, I enjoy hearing from you, and you can connect with me online on Instagram at Mike Cassidy Podcast, or via my email at mike@thephotographypodcast.show if you feel like reaching out to me. And thanks so much, and I will see you on the next show. This podcast and my website both focus on the goal of translating the art and business of photography and making it accessible and understandable to everyone. My goal is to provide the best content in photography for you, the listener. I've assembled a great team of photography guests and experts to make this happen. What I've chosen to do is create a subscriber model for my audience. If you value what I'm doing, you can become a member and support this podcast. In exchange, you'll get benefits over and above what's available for free. It's my goal to ensure that subscribers will definitely get back more than they give. I've created a membership program that brings you far more in-depth content if you want to take your knowledge of photography to the next level. Members will receive episodes with complete, unabridged interviews with our guests. Members will also get exclusive access to listen to and participate in AMA episodes. And there's more. If you would like to learn more now, head over to thephotographypodcast.show/subscribe. Now, without further delay, here's today's episode. All right, and we're going. We have no idea where we're going to end up. Both of us are sweltering. Super hot. I was just telling Tanya I went outside to talk to a woman who wanted to come in with her friend about a session. I was sitting out in the front, and it's like 97 degrees here, or like 37 Celsius, I think, in this year of things going crazy. Now it seems like the sun is coming closer to the earth, and this is...
Yeah, no kidding. It's hot here, too. I was outside for a little bit cleaning the pool, and I thought, the only time I'm going to be out here is if I'm actually going in the pool. Otherwise, I'm inside.
Yeah, and I like it. My body is built for this warm, but there's a point where it just gets like too hot.
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
It's fine. All right. We'll talk about the weather. We'll talk about another hot topic today. We're going to be talking about boudoir photography with Tanya a little bit and how to get started as a boudoir photographer. And my guest today is Tanya Smith. She is a longtime boudoir photographer. She also teaches portrait and boudoir photography at Profitable Portraits. And she's also a podcast host like me at the Profitable Portraits podcast. You're busy. You're very busy.
Yes.
How are you doing this? Why, more importantly, why would anybody want to be a podcast host?
Yeah. And it's funny because, you want to put content out there and you want to help people out. And I have, a Facebook group for photographers, but I also have a Facebook group for clients. And I'm a talker. You'll hear that. Everybody who's listening will realize that I'm a talker for sure. So I think podcasting was kind of the next logical thing. Like blogging breaks me out in hives thinking of it. I just, stare at a blank screen and I can't put anything down. So what I do is I podcast because it's easier for me to talk. And then I just repurpose my talking into my blog post. Boom, done. It's
easier for you than sitting there and writing. See, and I will write. I don't have that much time to do it, but I guess my brain is always running. So I'll sit down and write blog posts. And yeah, so this, I guess, is another way when your brain is constantly going to, it's easier because you don't have to type. You can just talk a little bit and record. And see, I'm a big listener of podcasts because, like, if I'm sitting here at my desk working every night and I just work and I'll put it on now on Spotify or something and play in sort of the background. So I'll just like search for shows, and I came across your show and I was like, wow, she's doing a really good job. Like, people need to be listening to
awesome.
Your just good information.
Thank you.
And so I kept listening to your episodes, and I'm like, wow, I have to talk to you. And that was just a couple days ago. And
yeah.
I'm like, and here we are. Yeah, my show is weird because I don't want to talk to people, like, in general. I don't know if that...
Like in real life?
Yeah. Like, I want nothing to do with... But when I'm, like, in that role of being, like, the or talking or to customers, I will talk and talk and talk. So my life, I don't quite understand it. It's, like, very strange.
You're like an introvert and an extrovert.
I don't know what it is, and I don't try to figure it out. But, like, I'm happy just... I guess maybe because you're so busy, you just want to be alone and you just want some time to yourself. I don't want to be bothered, but in that role, like if I'm in front of a customer or I can, carry that conversation and do it. But I don't think that's my natural state. I don't know what my natural.
I think a lot of people think that, a lot of creatives are introverts, meaning they're happy when they're alone, like they get fired up. But it doesn't mean that you can't talk to people, that you're not social. It's just that you get more fired up when you're on your own and thinking and in your own space.
Yeah, I can't figure it out. I think you're right. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But we'll talk a little bit about profitable portraits, and we'll get into that and what we can find there, or talk a little bit about your show. But one thing I like to do is, when having people on, and talk to them a little bit about how they got started, because I think people always wonder how you got where you are today, and a little bit about that path. And so what was your start, and how did you get started in photography or boudoir? Really, what was the inspiration there? I know the answer because I listened to your show.
Spoiler. It's actually an interesting story. I was actually on the Side Hustle podcast as well, and a lot of people reached out to me after that one, because it's actually I got a divorce, and I was in corporate banking is where I started, so I'm really good with numbers and sales and that kind of stuff. And I've always been creative, but I just thought that's what you do on the side. It's not like a real job, and you can't make money from that because that's what everyone tells you. And even my divorce lawyer, when we were going through it, I thought, you know what? Screw this. Now I'm going to do photography. And I was doing fine art photography, actually. No people involved. Nobody's going to, that I have to direct or anything. And I enjoyed that. And then I accidentally fell into boudoir photography. So I can tell you a bit about that. But for when I was going through my divorce, my lawyer said, you can't make any money with photography, so you have to go and apply for a real job.
A job.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of a real job, isn't it? But no, he told me that. And I actually did. And I applied for a bunch of jobs because I had taken some time off to be a mom, and then got divorced, and then started this. And I was applying for jobs, and I didn't get any. And I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Yeah. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. I'm not going to let people, decide for me. I want to give it a go. And if it doesn't work after a couple of years, I'll get out. And, so I was going to kind of doing fine art. And, I myself, after the divorce, went and had a boudoir session, and I never heard of it before. It came up on a WagJag.
You saw it somewhere.
Yeah. And so I thought I'd do it. And I thought, this sounds fantastic. And I freaking loved it. It was a great experience. And it wasn't about the photos at all. And I was telling my girlfriends about it, and they thought, wow, this sounds really cool. Will you take my photos? And I'm like, no, I don't. I'm not a person photographer.
Oh, they knew you were a photographer.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I took pictures of kids at the parties and all that kind of stuff, right? So my one girlfriend kept at me, and I'm like, here's the girl's card. Go see her. Nope, she wanted me to do it. So I picked this friend because I thought, how hard can it be? She is gorgeous, and everyone knows, she is that friend, right? She's perfect, everything. So I thought, you know what? That's not going to be that hard. I'll do it. And it was awful. And she looked worse than she does in real life. I don't even know how that's possible. I did her such a disservice, and she wanted to see the photos, and I said, no, I'm not showing you. Obviously I suck. I'm not a photographer. Everyone's right. And I just put them away, and I said, no, I'm not. They're not good. They're underexposed. They were out of focus. This is what I told her. So I never showed her. And within 2 months, I, was cleaning up my desktop and came across them, and I thought, oh God, I should delete these. And then I looked, stepping away and coming back, I looked at them and I thought, actually, this one almost works. If I could just maybe move over to the right a bit, that would have showed more of her curves. And I started looking at them, differently. And I said to her, come back in again. Let's try it again. And I took my time because, you're kind of nervous and you just sort of take all these shots.
You're rushing through it. Yeah.
Spray and pray, right? And I took my time and I looked, what looks better. And I moved around until it looked good. And I did it. And it also sucked, but it was better.
Good job,
yeah, it was better. And I started to feel, and then I showed her those ones. And when I look back at them now, they're so bad. They're really cheesy and bad. But she cried when she saw them. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe how I look. I look so beautiful. And honestly, that was it. I was hooked. I'm like, wow, I just did that and made her feel that way. And that's what got me into boudoir photography. And I started, shooting people for free, which I don't advocate doing. And we can talk about that. Yeah. But yeah, and that was in 2011. And, I did everything and struggled and shot for free and made no money and gave them all the digitals until I started
learning. It's a learning process.
It is. And I think,
too, back then, it wasn't like now where you were going on the YouTube or going on somewhere and they were trying to give you their way of doing. Everyone has their way, right. That's the right way. Yeah. So you kind of had to figure it out on your own. It was a sink or swim thing, and you either somehow figured it out or you didn't. So I think that's a big difference now versus like 10 years ago. For sure. And people didn't really even know what boudoir photography was. Like they'd say, what is that? Is that porn? That's my favorite for a long time, and I finally just realized I just said it's Victoria's Secret style photos. And then they're like, oh, okay, I get it. For everyday women. But yeah, it was hard. And then I realized after about 3 years, I started paying people. So either a mentor, like an actual photographer that I paid for, and she taught me some things. And then I don't think she's in business anymore, but, I'm paying for courses. And I realized I could have saved myself a lot of time if I just, learned from people who are 3 or 4 years ahead of me. And that was a huge game changer for me, and things just started taking off and happening. And then I was doing, I love it. I shoot now, I'm considered a luxury photographer, so I'm very expensive. My average sale is at least $5,000, close to $5,000 per client. So I only need to shoot 1 or 2 times a week. And I'm doing that and I'm loving it and I'm making, mid 6 figures, which is amazing. And then I started getting photographers going, how are you doing this? How are you? Everybody wants to know the secret. Yeah. Yeah. So I started teaching and remember, banking background, right? So I started teaching my strategy and how I do everything super, super simple. Like I don't know why it's so complicated. And that's a problem. And I think that's what we'll talk about. People make this whole business way too complicated. Oh, no kidding. And I think they just tangle themselves up in their own messes and drag themselves down. And I think one thing that you mentioned that struck me listening to the show and here is that when you first started, you knew that it was bad. And which is, I think, a big deal because I think many people, when now especially, they lack this self-awareness. Yeah. And, so this is something I wanted to talk to you a little bit about too, this impressions where people think that, all right, they wake up one morning, and with beauty photography, it's a lot of women and they just, that more so than men involved in this business. And they get up one day, they know nothing about photography whatsoever. They took a photo and put it on Facebook, and a friend was like, wow, that's great. You should be a photographer. And suddenly that's their new thing. They stopped being the cupcake queen. They had an at-home cupcake business just a few weeks ago, and now they're a women's photographer. Right. And in part, they go on, buy a camera on Amazon, and they get a website, and now they're a pro. And they don't realize, or people don't realize, the struggle or I think the time it takes to gain a degree of competency in doing this, because you definitely don't wake up one morning, decide and then start charging $5,000 a person, because it's just not going to work out. Right. And I think the other big thing in photography too, and a lot of this comes from this internet kind of mindset, is that you start a business and people are going to be knocking down your door. I built a website. Where is everybody? Yeah, you're owed this. Because I'm here to change the lives of people, so therefore I'm owed this somehow. Or it's going to be so simple. And I always tell people it's not. So you'll back me up on this. We'll talk a little bit about some of these details, and I think a lot of the mistakes that people make when they want to get involved in this business. And I think most importantly is that self-awareness, and that it takes time. It takes a lot of practice. And then when you do sit down at first, it's going to be bad. And I've had some previous photographers on here that I talked to, and I always say to them, how awful was your first couple of photo shoots? Because that's just how it's going to go. Right. You don't wake up one and you're not a genius from that point. So what's a little bit of feedback on that as far as those statements I just made?
Yeah, for sure. And it's like that, you can read everything on the planet about swimming or golfing, and you can read every single book, but you cannot be a golfer until you do it, and you can't swim until you get in the water. So I think, now I don't 100% agree with you, because I don't think everyone jumps in and goes, I'm a pro, I'm going to charge $5,000. I think part of the problem is when people start out, even if they do realize I need some practice, now they're practicing for 4 years and 5 years. And it's like, no, you're done. You can shoot. You can be a photographer. Now you have to stop thinking that you're starting out and charging too low. Right? But
so that's the tricky part, I guess.
Yes.
In learning these different levels or how to constantly walk up that ladder is something we'll get into here today. And because starting, I think, as a women's photographer is especially difficult. And for a number of reasons, in I think it's changed, and you may see about this. I think it's changed where I think when we started, and I know I started doing this in 2008, 2009-ish, and it was starting to change a little bit at this time, but it was forbidden. I don't want to use the word forbidden, but it was almost like, you're going to do what?
Yes.
Don't tell the neighbors.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that that mindset has changed now. Where I have women who come in, and I've mentioned before, they're like live streaming themselves from their sessions.
Yeah.
It's not like that same kind of it has changed in society a little bit, but it's still hard when you're getting going. To even get sample pictures and to get off the ground, and because putting bad pictures up on your website isn't going to get you
business,
a lot of business. So just think if you had a few thoughts about even just getting started as far as getting off the ground. What are some good ideas if I want to start today, and how do I get going?
Yeah, for sure. And I think also to your point, putting bad pictures up is not going to get you bookings, but putting good pictures up is not going to get you bookings either. You have to, my biggest thing that I tell people, like I have a full course on teaching boudoir and portrait photographers. And what we talk about is the business side. So we talk about all the numbers and everything. But I always say, you can be the best photographer in the world and not make any money, but you can be a mediocre photographer and make a lot of money if you know the business side.
Marketing, yeah.
Yeah, but as a boudoir photographer, it's a totally different animal than any other portrait genre, because you can take a half decent or even kind of a crappy headshot or family portrait and people are still going to buy it. But boudoir, you kind of have a responsibility to learn how to do flattering poses before you start photographing women, because you can do a lot of damage to their self-esteem. And like I did, you can make a woman look worse than she actually does. Just by posing badly and, lighting badly, you can make it worse. So I think for boudoir photographers, definitely learn your craft. Know your camera to a point. I am not a gearhead. I used a crop sensor for a really long time. Clients will still buy the images.
I don't think that matters too much. Yeah.
No, but you do get people who are like, I need another lighting course. I need another posing course. For boudoir, yes, learn how to pose. Spend more time on that than the average portrait photographer, for sure. But then get to know the business. You need to know the business side. And this is a really great business to have. It's hard work. It's not easy, especially at the beginning. Learn from people who are ahead of you and learn the numbers and keep it simple. And you'll hear it on my podcast. I say it all the time. Stop overcomplicating things. Like, you don't have to charge a client, if it's an extra spread, it's an extra $7. And if you do, and you get 3 outfit changes. If you want 4, it's an extra this. It's like, stop making it confusing.
Yeah.
A confused mind says no. So you start throwing all this stuff at a client and they're going to back away because they don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, that's right. And I think a lot of that stems from, and I don't exactly know what you call this, but this internet stuff about boudoir photography and not just boudoir, but photography in general, where these people wake up, decide to become a photographer, and the first thing they do is go online and look and see what everybody else is doing. All right, so this person is doing this, so therefore I have to do this, or they're putting photos like this, or therefore there's a lot of copying, there's a lot of mimicking. And when I talk to somebody, I said, you don't know if that person's crazy or not. You don't have no idea even if they're making money.
Are they making money? Yeah.
You don't know anything about this. They could be 1,000% wrong. And so they, as a new person, they start copying all of this stuff. But that's a really, really bad way to get started. Like, would you agree with me?
Well, I think that's kind of the only way to kind of start is by investigating. But I think you have to keep in mind that, does this feel right to you? If you like this photo, awesome. But why do you like it? Why does it speak to you? What is it that you like? Do you like the light? Do you like how she's posed? What is it that you like about it? And go from there and explore that. And also, if someone's teaching you about business or pricing and you give it a try, because it's the only way to learn, just try something, and you feel like that was weird, I didn't know how to explain it. Well, let's explore that. Why was it strange? Why did you not know how to explain it? Probably because it was confusing. So don't, just because everyone else does it like that, don't do it like that. What I teach people is, it's a 3-page price list. That's it. One is for your collections. One is for add-ons, and one is for wall art. And what I do is I sell per image. I don't care if you want 5 images or 50 images. You pay for each image. And then you tell me what format you want it in. Do you want those 20 images in a digital format? Do you want it in an album? Do you want it in a folio box? It's all the same price. You're just paying per image. So it's super, super simple. And that's worked really well for me. And that's what I teach in my course as well.
It's simple. And, what you'll see looking around, especially in Boudoir, these very convoluted ways that people charge. They're charging by outfits. Like, you can wear 3 bras for this amount of money, 4 bras for this, or you have 18 minutes, and there's all these
or sets. And if you want to use this set, you got to pay extra, and
And the bottom line is, who the hell cares? First of all, I've always approached it from the way that this is an experience for people. We're not there to rush them. That's not like a great customer way to treat people. All right, you have 18 minutes starting now, and you're looking at your watch or 2 outfits.
It's too much pressure for them too, and for you.
Who's going to sit there? I'm not going to sit there looking at my watch the whole time I'm with somebody. But when to me, it's always been about this is a break from someone's everyday. It's a little bit of a change and getting a makeover and kicking back and doing something they don't normally do on an everyday basis, which is most women have never come in and had a boudoir session before, and making it a pleasant experience and having them walk away with a smile. Not having someone worrying about, I have 3 outfits left, but I can only use 2 of them, and I don't know which one to pick. That, to me, that always seemed like a little bit strange. And I don't get this too much anymore, but I would have people contact me and they would say, and I really was never one to have pricing on my website, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that too. But, I've been talking to photographer so-and-so, and they're letting me wear 3 bras for $300, and, what are your, and I'd be like, I don't do it that way. I don't know what to tell you. And so it's just very odd. And I don't know if there's necessarily one right way to come up with a pricing scheme, but I think ultimately it's about your time. And so doing it by images is how kind of the way I do it now, because the more images, the more of your time. And that's the one commodity you don't get more of.
But the more money I make. So I'm not going to limit her to outfits or sets, because...
What does it matter?
Yeah. Like, I have a set of Victoria's Secret wings that I made, and not everybody, but a lot of people love that.
Use them, yeah.
And, they're like, and is it extra for the wings? I'm like, no, you can use anything in my studio while we shoot for a few hours. And for me, I'm like, if I add the wings in there, she's definitely going to buy at least 1 or 2.
So why wouldn't you want that?
Change up the set. The more variety, the more she's going to have to buy, right? So it's all about what the client wants. Also, my biggest thing is if you were asking me what my one advice would be to photographers anywhere, whether you're starting out or you're advanced, stop worrying about what other photographers are doing or what they think about your photos or your pricing. Like, I've had people so many times tell me that you're not going to make money on that pricing. And I think, I am, though. I'm making a lot of money on it. And, people that have gone through my course this one girl just posted something the other day and said, after she's gone through it and she did her pricing, she did a $3,000 sale. And she said that would have been 10 clients before this. And she did it with 1 client. So it works. It works. Like, for me, it's all about keeping it simple. Because I know, like, when I go into a tech store or something, and I'm fairly tech advanced, but if I go in and I'm asking about, something like the freaking Google Home that we have in here,
right.
And ask a few things, and the guy starts getting all techie and telling me this stuff, and I don't know what he's talking about. And I usually kind of go, okay, thanks. And I leave, because I don't know what the hell he was talking. I'll figure it out myself. I'll go home. But if I'm confused, I'm just going to say no. And it turns out I could have bought that. I ended up buying it from someone else. But he didn't give me...
Too complicated.
Yeah, he just made it so much more complicated than it needed to be. So for me, I'm all about keeping it simple. And also don't use photographer speak with clients. Like even high res. People don't know what the hell the difference is between high res and
that
low
doesn't
res.
necessarily mean anything.
Yeah.
There's no one standard thing that means.
Yeah, we know what it means. They don't. Like, can I print it? That's all I want to know, you know? So, it's all about keeping it simple for sure and not nickel and diming people by an extra outfit change, an extra hour, you know, anything like that. It's just
now, as far as, again, using me as the theoretical person just getting started in this business and say, hey, I've been messing around. I think I want to give this a go. Do you think that right from the start, you want people to go as high as they can in terms of pricing? Or are you saying step it up? Like if I was brand new, are you going to tell me go for the top right away? Or maybe you should start someone here and then see how that goes and then sort of move it up as you go.
Yeah,
as you go
and
along.
I know that you're probably going to be surprised, but yeah, I would say go high. But there's a however. You need to find a photographer that you trust that will give you creative criticism, constructive criticism. Posting on a Facebook group and saying, what do you think of this photo is disastrous for you, for your self-esteem. Yeah. And all you're going to get is people's opinions. And you don't, for one, those photographers aren't your clients, so it doesn't matter. You almost want to ask trusted friends too, who aren't photographers. What do you think of this photo? Does she look good in this? And they might be like, it's a little cheesy, or, you know, whatever. It makes her eyes, her neck is gone or whatever. But if you can find a photographer or a mentor that you trust that can tell you these photos are good or they're good enough, which means that you, as a client, as an everyday client, as a woman, would that woman be happy with that photo? And if so, then charge for it. And don't go low. Don't do the shoot and burn to start with, because it's just a waste of your time. You just get frustrated. You get burnt out. So yeah, I teach people to go high, be luxury. You can be in the low end of luxury, but I'm talking, $2,000 at least to start out, because what I see a lot of people do is they do the range. So they start off with shoot and burn, and then they find out pretty damn quickly that you need to raise your prices. So it's scary to raise your prices. So what they do is they just raise them a little tiny bit because it's too scary. So they raise it a little bit and a little bit more.
They're afraid they're not going to get any people.
Right. And then what happens is they don't get people. And the reason is because when you're way down here at shoot and burn, you're going to get a lot of people, but you're going to get burnt out. And when you're way up here in luxury and you're charging $3,000 and $4,000, you're at the luxury end. But in the middle, you're kind of in no man's land. So what happens with that is you're too expensive for the people who want you shoot and burn, and you're way too cheap for the people that are looking for a luxury experience. So you actually get less clients in that middle area where you're charging $700 and $900. So you either have to make a giant leap or stay down here, because you're not going to get clients in the middle. And then you get frustrated and you're like, I raised them. Now I get no clients. Okay, I'm going to put them back down again. I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have raised them.
Yeah, and I think changing the prices all the time isn't a great move either. Like people will raise and, no one's contacting me, and then they'll go back.
Well, I would never go down again, but I tweaked there. I had a year when I went into the luxury market that I swear I think I upped my prices like 10 times in 1 year. And I think that's okay as you get more comfortable. Like my top package is now at $4,200, and then, there's add-ons. But when I first raised them, my top package was $2,700. So, and then I thought, oh, people are actually buying this. Okay, maybe I'll try $2,900. And then they were buying. So I was doing that. And that was just for me.
Well, that's fine.
Baby
That's
steps,
just testing
right?
that market to see, and why not, if that extra money is out there, why not get it?
Absolutely.
And I think that, what are your thoughts on this? That being a luxury, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, a boudoir photographer is a lot more than just your pricing. Because a lot of that has to do with branding as well. And I think really and I see this all the time, and again, it's like a nightmare when it comes to photographers, is that if you are going to be a high-end, whatever that may be to you, photographer, and actually I was starting to do a show about this. I had a bunch of notes, but I'll spill some of it here. It all starts even with your website. And if your website doesn't look like you are a high-end photographer, there isn't continuity there. If it doesn't start with there, if you don't have this customer service, if you're not, there's a whole bunch of other things that come along with being a high-end photographer. It's not just the prices. And then also, what are your thoughts? Well, we'll actually answer that, and I'll get back to my second question. But I think that you need to go out and get a fancy schmancy web guy to build you a fancy schmancy website. You have to not be sending people like a little scrappy PDF of your prices and emailing it out to them. You have to get on the phone with them, and it's all about customer service and having that conversation with them. Because I'm sure, I am 100% sure, Tanya, that when you get an inquiry, you're not just sending someone an email and saying, here's my prices, it's $4,000.
Absolutely. No.
And then,
well, you won't get anybody because at the beginning, they're reaching out to you because they see your photos and they think, I want that. How much does it cost? $4,000. Oh God, forget it. Right? Because they don't know anything about the experience. They don't know anything about what's going to happen. Yeah. It's as if, you tell somebody that I'm going out for dinner and it cost me $500. That's crazy. Well, hold on. Let me tell you a little bit about what I had, what the restaurant looked like. They parked my car. They valeted me. They, all the things. And then you kind of go, actually, yeah, you're right. That's actually not too bad. So you do have to do that. And I am going to tell you that I disagree with you about the website. Whatever, everyone to their own thing. Right, but I don't think you should spend money at the beginning getting your website up. In fact, if you are just starting out, I recommend that you just go in and get a Spark page. You guys are photographers. You have the Adobe for Lightroom and Photoshop. If not, you definitely need that. But Spark comes with that free, and you can build a scrolling web page to send people to. I agree that it 100% has to look professional. And you have to show your best images. Do not put 50 images on there because you have them. If you don't have that many, that's totally fine, because I think you should just have your very, very best images on there. But yeah, you can put starting prices on your website, but I have a whole podcast episode. I think it was out, or it's coming out, about how you introduce your prices. And you sure as heck don't say, oh, you're going to spend $3,000 with me or $4,000 or whatever, because they won't book with you. That's
the whole process people need to learn too.
Yes.
That is something you just don't start to do.
Right.
I think you really need to be involved in a background in sales, or be involved where it's like selling an expensive car or anything, a high luxury item. There's a little bit of a different approach to that, which I think you need to familiarize yourself with. Yep. It's a little bit different than sending somebody an email with, hey, $4,000, you want me to take your pictures?
Yeah. And you need to, I think what happens too is it's important, especially, and again, we're talking especially boudoir photographers, but all portrait photographers. You need to have some sort of presence online so people can investigate and see what you're all about. So whether it's Facebook or Instagram or even TikTok, like wherever you are, make it so that people understand, one, who you are and what you're all about, and two, what it's going to be like for them. Because the questions that they have are ones we've heard a million times, and we know the answer, and we will tell them the answer. But you need to put those questions, those answers to those questions out there on a regular basis so they understand. And you will have people who will connect with you and who will not connect with you, and that's fine. And then when you're priced luxury, you're going to have a lot of people who will not book with you because you're out of range.
Right,
but they may still follow you. And then after a year or two,
with somebody like you,
they realize, oh, I really want to shoot with her, but I can't afford $4,000. Forget it.
Right.
And they follow, and then they hear my voice, and they get my, personality, and it connects with them, and then they hear testimonials from other clients, and then all of a sudden, in a year or two, it's not so expensive because they're understanding what they're paying for.
It takes time.
Yeah. So the key is when someone reaches out, definitely acknowledge them right away. I send them an email, which you'll be happy to know. A lot of people are like, oh, phew, I don't have to get on the phone. You do eventually, yes. But my email is more about, yay, it's great. I'm happy to hear from you. This is such a cool experience. A lot of my women feel this and that and that. And then, you talk a bit about how fun it's going to be. Then I say, I want to get to know you a little bit first. So we need to meet or talk on the phone. And plan your session just like a luxury magazine shoot. And then I say, my prices start at, $1,400 and go all the way up to, or some women spend $1,400. Some spend $7,000, $8,000 or more. It depends what you like. But when you put your low pricer on there, if they're okay with it, then they're going to take the next step. And then when you get them on the phone, you just have to talk. And well, actually, you have to listen first. Let them tell you what they're looking for. Are they getting married? Is it a gift for their new groom? Did they just get divorced? Whatever the reason is, what is the reason that you're reaching out to me for these photos? What are you feeling? What do you want from this? And let them talk, and people will talk. And let them do that first. And then you can kind of tell them a little bit about the experience and, you know, go over your prices. I meet everybody in person before I photograph them. Hands down, no exception. Well, I shouldn't say no exception. If they're, you know, 3 or 4 hours away, I will do a video chat, but I want to see their face, and I want them to see my face, and I want them to see the studio.
Yeah. Because that's a super important part of it, is them being okay with the person that's going to be going to be working with them. Mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on boudoir being like a niche business? Now, let's say, for example, you're near a larger city. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm near a larger city, so, you know, I think there's more people and it's a little bit easier. But how about somebody who, say, lives in a small town in Oklahoma, 1,000 people, less than 1,000 people, not a big area? Do they have any chance in the world of being a boudoir photographer, let alone being like a luxury boudoir photographer? Does geography come like into play, do you think, in someone's future here?
Easy answer. No, it doesn't come into play. And that's one of the things that you get a lot of people with excuses like, oh, but you don't understand. People won't pay that prices in my area. So go outside your area, especially luxury. You can be more successful in a small town if you're luxury, because people will travel to you. Right? So you definitely are close to a town that's bigger than your town if you're in a small town. Even if it's an hour away or 2 hours away, just market. If you're going to do Facebook ads, which you should be doing, market to that area. Don't market to your area. One of the people who went through my course, she lives in an army base with her husband. And she's like, no one's going to pay those prices here. That's fine. Go outside. So I have a lot of photographer friends I know that are very successful in 6 figures or more. And they're all in small towns. They just don't market to their small town. They just because you live there or your studio's there, it doesn't mean you have to only use those people there. You can go 2 hours.
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, I have people that come 6 hours.
Oh, me too.
Or further away. So people will drive. It's not a lot, but I have had all the way out in Pennsylvania, way up in New York. I've had people that were in Florida, Delaware coming in. So if people see something and they connect with you, people will travel. I think it limits, like you said, locally, you know, it's going to limit you maybe a little bit. You're going to have to draw from a larger area, so you have to do marketing in a different way a little bit and approach it in a little bit of a different way. So it's possible. So you mean if I moved to Oklahoma, I could still stay?
You could still do it,
to people in Oklahoma. It's very nice in Oklahoma. But I guess the point here was you don't need to necessarily be in a super urban metropolis with tons and tons of people. Now, you know, again, here or where you are is busier. Now, what about the flip side of that? What are some of your ideas and how to separate yourself or how to make yourself stand out?
Like competition.
As far as, from, you know, the other people. And there's not like tons and tons of people doing boudoir, but there are certainly, as I guess, in getting a busier area, there's going to be more and more of them. So what do you think are some important things to do to make someone say, ooh, I want this person, rather than picking, you know, option B or C? Well,
you're never going to be able to talk somebody into going with you. Not in the sense of, I found this other photographer. Well, I'll tell you, in my, where my studio is, within, I don't know, a 10-minute walk, there's 3 other boudoir photographers. And there's actually in my building 2 other boudoir photographers.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah. So it is interesting. And even when I moved into the building, I thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. There was one literally next door to me. Like when you walked into our area, there was
right
Tanya Smith.
Oh my goodness.
And this other person, boudoir, and she was there longer. So the point, I think what we have to keep in mind is we know where other boudoir photographers are, or other whatever competition photographers are, but your clients don't. The reason they found you is whatever the reason is. They liked your photos. Their friend mentioned that you should check this person out. They follow you on Facebook. They found you like that. If someone is literally shopping around and saying, I want boudoir photographers or boudoir photography, but I want the cheapest price, then you're not going to win, and that's totally cool. Don't ever win on price, because eventually you're going to lose.
That's what I just put down in the notes, is that I think sometimes people are afraid of rejection.
Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing, when someone contacts you, oh, I love this, and then, they're like, yeah, that's too much for me. I only have $200 to spend, or $300, and ooh. And so, I think they don't want to be turning people away, or they feel that's bad. But I guess that's just part of this, because you can't be for everybody. If you're going to
no, not at all. Especially when you're luxury, and that's when I teach that all the time. Is the higher priced you are, the more no's you're going to get.
Right.
But do you think Apple gives a crap that you said, "Oh my God, I'm not paying for an iPhone. I'm getting an Android"? Go ahead. That's fine. High-end restaurants, they don't care that I can get a cheaper one down at McDonald's. I can get a steak sandwich for $4. Why would I pay $48 here? Who cares? It's not the same thing. So So any excuse that a photographer comes up with, like no one will pay those prices in my area, or, there's nobody in my town who will go there, or there's someone cheaper down the road. It doesn't matter. It never, ever matters. You just have to, one of the key things you need to do is just stay visible, be yourself. Don't try to copy and be other people. And the people that are attracted to you as a person will be drawn to you naturally. And there's enough people, there's billions of people around. There are enough clients for everybody. And I even said too...
It's a lack of I think it's a lack of self-confidence and knowing at first.
It
and
is.
Like I said, it is that rejection, like they feel they need to take every person that's coming in. And it's tough when you're talking with someone and they're really nice and you would love to photograph them, and she's such a sweet bride, and just like, oh, I spent all my money on the wedding and I don't have $900, I don't have $1,000, I don't have $1,100, or whatever the case is, to come in, and you feel bad telling them, like, sorry.
Yeah, but I think as creatives, we take everything personal because it's our art, but you have to think like a CEO and not like just a small business owner. And you have to kind of go, it's okay that I'm not for everyone, because one, I don't want to shoot 10 times a week. I only want to shoot twice maximum, sometimes once. So if I get 20 inquiries and only 4 say yes, that's perfect. We don't want to keep doing, and they're not insulting us. It's not like they inquired, which means they're interested and they like our work. But if the price just doesn't, it's usually not that they can't afford it. It's just usually that you didn't teach them what the value is. They didn't see what the value is. So, again, like I said, a lot of times they say no, but if they're still interested, they will stay following you. And eventually I get people booking. Like almost everybody I get, and I ask them how they found me, they almost always say, I've been following you for a year or 2 years.
A while.
Almost
now I just
all the time.
got the courage to talk to you. And I think another trap, well, trap isn't the right word, but people who, not just boudoir, but any photography, if they are just taking anybody that comes along at first, and let's say you do charge a low amount of money or whatever that is to you, and afterwards, at some point, you start to realize that you're spending 10 hours, 11 hours, 15 hours or so of your time after maybe even this photo session to edit photos and all the things that come in. And what a lot of people don't realize is, and I did this a couple of years ago, and I got interrupted this spring because of what was going on with this virus, but I went and time tracked a couple of sessions I've been working on. So from the very first time I heard from somebody, I had a job tracker toggle I think I was using, and there was about 5 sessions where from the first time I heard from them, all through all the editing, I was keeping track of how much total time was invested with each person. So people don't think about that too.
That's eye-opening.
You're getting $200 from somebody for a boudoir session, and you realize you spent like 14, 18 hours, and in the end you made yourself $8 an hour,
or not even,
or less, or not. Yeah, and at the end of it, you're like, well, what am I doing?
Why am I doing this?
So I think sometimes people don't understand, and they're excited to have someone contact them, like, oh my God, this person wants me to take their photos. And I think at the very beginning, do it, just for the experience. But as you're getting in there, that your time is definitely has to have some value. So that's where you sit down. And the one great thing about photography is it can be a great part-time business. It could be a great full-time business. And then at that point, you have to sit there and say, all right, what am I in this for? And if I'm in this to pay my bills, all right, how am I going to live? And then you need to sort of work backwards a little bit and say, okay, if I need to make X, X, and X, I'm not going to do it charging someone $200 to come in to see me. So it's either going to fall in line like that, and I think a lot of people maybe don't know how to calculate that.
Yeah, I have actually a calculator, and you can maybe put it in the show notes. It's a free download. It's a super simple calculator, and what I do is literally what you said, is I work backwards. So how much money do you want to make in your pocket? Even if you're part-time, it's fine. But just because you're part-time doesn't mean you charge less. You should still, that just means you shoot less. So instead of taking 2 or 3 shoots a week, you would only take 1 or maybe 2 shoots a month. But you still should make good money on those shoots. So
if you don't know what you're making, you got to
go backwards. So I do, like, obviously you should do a full cost of goods and cost of doing business spreadsheet, which I go over in my course. But this free download is really simple, and you literally put in what you want to make, and then it tells you and how many times you want to shoot, how often you want time off, because you're not shooting 52 weeks a year.
I don't want to work every day.
No.
I like my summer.
So, yeah, exactly. Me too with summers. I have long weekends every weekend in the summer. But yeah, and you put that in, and then it tells you this is what you really should make per client to reach your goals. And it's kind of eye-opening, but it's also sort of, oh, actually, that's not so scary. And if I raise my prices, I can be there. So yes, when I get 6 inquiries and only 1 books, that's fine, because I'm only taking 2 shoots a month or 4 shoots a month. So I'll give you that link for your listeners. But it's kind of eye opening, and you can kind of play around with it too and go, what if I work less? What if I take more time off, and just figure it out, and then boom,
it gives you more control.
Yeah, and you know your prices.
But you will be shocked.
Yes, you will.
People will be shocked how much time you're putting in, and then you'll really, what the hell am I doing this for?
Yeah, and we need to stop taking it personal when people say, no, I can't. That's too much money. It's out of my budget. You say, great. Thanks for reaching out. Stay in touch. I hope you join my Facebook group, and and then hopefully they'll come back to you.
Stick around.
Yeah.
And you're right. And then the best way to put it is, you're right, restaurant. When people are getting married, they often don't think, all right, we're an anniversary dinner, we're heading out to Taco Bell because it's the cheapest.
Exactly.
It's only $2 for a chalupa.
Exactly.
Why would you take me to, a fancy sushi restaurant and spend $50 a person when we can get the, $2? And it's just learning about the experience, and people still, there are customers for all these kind of restaurants.
Yes,
Ford
there are.
sells cars. They're 3 times as much as a Hyundai, but I don't know, how do they manage to stay in business?
Well, you could also have you could be the same kind of, you could be the customer who's the same. Like, I love to go to luxury restaurants. I don't go all the time, but I'm still their ideal client, and I still go to, Taco Bell.
Right.
So yes, you can have somebody. And here's another thing that people do a lot, that photographers do, is they say, I'm going to target this area because there's a lot of big houses. That doesn't mean your clients are there. They might be, but the biggest sale I ever had, and still my biggest sale, it was $8,200, and it was from a girl who works at Walmart. So, I mean, not that there's anything, but they don't make a lot of money there. And she took almost 8 months to pay me off. Right. So she put a lump sum down, and then she'd use my payment plan, and she just put it down every time because she valued the experience and the photos. For me, I don't understand how people pay $800 for a Coach purse. For me, it's not, that doesn't make any sense to me.
There, yeah.
But that's because I don't care that much about purses. So I would rather spend money, on a camera, on a new computer, because that's valuable to me. My son spends $60 on a baseball hat. I don't get it. But he loves his lids. This is what he wants to wear. Like,
he values that experience.
He values it. So to me, it's a crazy amount of money. To him, it's not. So it's just what people value. And if people value photography and the experience you're giving them, they will pay for it, whether it takes them, 8 months to pay for it, or whether they just save for it or whatever. So don't think that just because people are rich or have a lot of money or live in an affluent area that they are, necessarily your client. They might not be.
All right, so now this is making me very depressing. So you're telling me I have to raise all my prices now?
Yes,
I got a lot of work to do. We're going to have to cut this show. We have to cut this short. I got to get back to my.
You got to do your pricing.
Yeah, it's true, and I think too, it's going to be different for every person. Because everything's going to be different. Your people's rents are going to be different. If they're renting a building, your expenses are going to be different. Yeah. Everything is going to change. If you may have someone else working for you, so you can again go by what the person down the street is charging necessarily, or next town. And the thing I've learned here today is maybe it doesn't matter if that person is charging $400. I can still charge $3,000, and then I can still have Oh, wow. This is really...
Yeah, it's a little bit mind-blowing, and I know people kind of like, whoa, oh my God. And even I bet when people were listening, maybe even you did this, Michael, when I said 5,000 was my average sale, you're probably like, well, I can't really do that. Right? When people are listening, I bet you they thought that. But yes, you can. And you can't. It's a scary thought for you, but this is just your own thing that you think that's a lot of money. Maybe you're not your ideal client. That could be too. But yes.
And there's a lot of prejudice there. I think what happens is people use their own prejudices, and they may think, I would never do that. I would never pay $800 for a Coach bag. But apparently, you can't let that come into the whole process. And also, over and above that, like I said, you need to be on top of things. I think if you're charging that, your business needs to represent that kind of branding. You need to have that kind of service, and you need to follow up and deliver that kind of experience. You can't, people and. Your images need to represent that kind of a look as well. If you have crappy, and there's a lot of crappy pictures out there, that's not going to really entice people to come along and say, yeah, I'm going to spend thousands of dollars for this if it looks like...
your photos need to appeal to everyday women. Right. Women have to look at those and like them. I don't care what photographers... Like, I still have... Sorry, excuse me. I still have photographers that will go on and say, it's funny, every once in a while I'll throw one in a group and ask for CC, constructive criticism, and people will still be, oh, you blew out the highlights over here. And I think it's so funny because one, I don't really care. And I will tell anybody that I am not the best technical photographer. And I have an assistant. She's actually a photographer. She's a great assistant. Love her. She is a better photographer than me. If I get stuck with lighting, I use mostly natural light. And if I get stuck with lighting and I have to pull out my strobe, I'm like, Jordan, can you set this? Like, she is the one who helps me with lighting because she is a better photographer than me. But you need to be a better business person to make money. Mm-hmm. And you can't be a crappy photographer because you can't give people a crappy product.
Right.
But I think it's how you deliver it. It's how you talk to them. It's how you make women feel. That is going to get you referrals. It's going to get them to follow you and ultimately get them to book you. So absolutely. And also, if you are the only photographer, if it's just you, which most people listening and most portrait photographers, it's just you. You need to be priced luxury. You might not like that idea, but you'll come around to it. But you should be priced luxury and high, because if you're priced less than $1,000, you should only be doing that if you're a high-end volume studio and you have, several photographers shooting with you. Then you can shoot less and you have women come in like one after the other and they get the 3 hours or 2 hours or less. And, someone else shoots them, their cookie cutter shots. If that's the case, that's fine. And that's a really good business model too, but it's high volume and you can't do that
low
yourself.
Time. You can't get in there and spend a lot of time on each person because you'll be going nuts and not have a lot of money to. And I guess if this is your business, it's all about making the money and you're in control.
Being sustainable.
Yeah, so it's important. And that was, so that's some great information there on pricing. And we'll switch topic here a little bit to another thing that when people are getting started in Boudoir is having pictures to show, which I think may have changed a little bit now. But back when I was always one of these people when I thought everything I did was horrible. I didn't even want anybody to see anything. I had to practice and practice and practice. And like, I would take the same picture like 100 times and look at them all to see, but that's just my weird brain. I was very analytical like that.
Creative.
Yeah. And at that time, you could go on to, I don't know if I like Model Mayhem, I put the notes in there. I don't think that's like kind of what it was now, but you could pay someone $200 or $300,
Model Mayhem,
have them come into your place and you could practice, for an hour or two, you could practice these photos. And I always found that helpful. They weren't really a customer, so you weren't too concerned if things didn't go quite the way that you did. So I did that at first. I haven't done that in years and years. But what are some other tips or what are some good ways if I'm getting started now to really work on my game or to get practice on these photos? Because not everybody wants you to use their pictures. It's a little tougher in Boudoir than it is for family photography or like pet photography or something like that. Yeah,
for sure. So one thing is I would not recommend you photographing models, like actual people who that's their job. When I say models, I mean professional models, because They know how to pose. They know how light hits their body. They know how to move their body. And regular women do not know that. So there's actually, and I'm not going to mention a name, but it's a very, very well-known photographer, male photographer, not that that matters, but a very well-known photographer who honestly I followed for a really long time. And I was so jealous of his photos. Like, they were stunning. The light he used, all that kind of stuff. They're perfection, these photos. And I followed him for several years. And I know it's not always sustainable. Just because someone, like I said, takes great photos doesn't mean they're making money. So I had no idea. And he, put a thing out and said, I'm going to actually start taking clients of regular women. And if you would like to have these beautiful photos, here's all the examples. Look at these beautiful photos. And yes, they were beautiful, but they were models. And he started shooting women who are not models, don't know how to move their body, don't know how the light hits them. I don't even know that. And I'm a photographer. I only know the other side. And he started posting pictures of women, and they were awful, Michael. Like, so unflattering, just awful, because he was doing what commercial photographers do, is they pick it up and go, click. Okay, move your pose. Why aren't you moving your pose? Yeah. I actually really do not like shooting models because I know what I want. I'm going to take a shot and I want to move around you now. And then bam, she changes her pose. And I'm like, what are you doing? I didn't tell you to move. So I don't recommend shooting models because you will not learn how to pose a woman, a non-model. I would recommend you ask your friends. And then later when you're kind of taking photos that are okay, then I would put it out there and ask people, would you like, I don't like calling it a model call. What I do is I offer a voucher. So I don't.
I mean, I shouldn't do free sessions?
No,
you don't
that's
want me
right.
putting out the free, everything for free,
You're
free?
referring to my, I think my second podcast episode. Don't shoot for free, even if you're building your portfolio.
You're taking away all my fun today.
I know I am.
All right, I got to get off that.
Michael's going to hang up. We're disconnected.
I'm going to have a lot of work to do over the next week.
But it is actually technically a free shoot. It is, but you don't call it a free shoot. What you say
it's about
is,
value,
I want to give you
line.
a certificate or a voucher for $2,000. And what that will give you is a session including hair and makeup, and it'll get you 10 images, let's say. So now they're like, oh my God, I got $2,000 to spend at, Michael Cassidy portraits. This is amazing, but you're still giving her a free shoot.
That's 10 times my session price.
Is it? Your session price, yeah. But yeah, so it's jackpot to them, right? But it's still a free shoot for you and you're building your portfolio. And you would explain to them that this is for me to, get some photos to use for marketing or to use my new set or to use my new Victoria's Secret wings or whatever. They understand that these photos are for you. So they have to agree by accepting this $2,000, you are signing an image release. So if someone doesn't want you to share their photos, then that's fine, but you pay full price. When you're building your portfolio, that's what I would do. I still throw out vouchers every once in a while, but they're way lower. So it's like, a $200 voucher, $200 off of one of the packages. But starting out, yes, you're shooting for free, but you don't call it free because you want to give it a value. $2,000, $3,000, whatever.
And that
you
works.
want.
I'm going to tell you firsthand, I know that works because, again, I don't do that too much any longer. Although I do have a voucher. It was actually funny. I was going to get some printed at Miller's. But like years ago, I would carry them around with me.
Yeah.
And I made these little tiny, they weren't even smaller than little business card size. And I had them printed up and it would say, for value, whatever, come in and see me. And if I was at a restaurant and had great service with somebody, or if I saw someone, it would be like, ooh, I would really like to take pictures of this person. Yep. And it sounds weird, but I'd be like, walk up to them and be like, this is kind of strange, but, I do these, and I thought, maybe like you and your friends to come in for some photos, and I would hand out these vouchers. And that would work. So I know firsthand doing something like that. Not everybody's is gonna come in, but that's a good.
Oh no, you'll hand out 200 and get 3 people to call you, and that's fine. But if you have a bit of a following on social media, you can also put that on there as a contest that I'm going to hand these out, or I have one big voucher of $3,000 and I have 2 that for $500. All you have to do is add your friends to my group, and post a comment on here, so now you're growing your group. But
give them away as a contest, sort of type of deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it is tough. It's very tough, I think. And at the beginning to get people to let you use your photos. And I guess I got lucky a little bit when I was working with some people, especially like it seemed working with a lot of brides, they would always tend to have friends who were getting married about the same time. And I just ran into a bunch of network of people that kind of just, I guess I got lucky, and there were friends and friends of friends who all wanted to come in, but it's difficult. And one thing I found that wasn't, to talk about working with these models, and these aren't like pro models. These are more like
learning
grade, you know, like type of models, is that they thought they knew more about everything than you. So you're right. When someone would come in, they would be, no, but we have to do this way. We have to do this way.
Yes.
And that's difficult if you're just starting with someone, again, who is telling you, and really they're there for me to practice some very specific things, and they have all these other ideas in mind. Well, I'm the model, so therefore I know, which it's, you know, you have to be real.
Models are a different creature, and you're not marketing to models, so why would you use them to practice? Because you're not going to get any practice with it. You have to use real people and learn how to pose them for sure.
Now, what are you doing now that even going and doing your sessions, you're still talking to clients and your everyday clients and having them ask them if they want to share photos? You're doing that with everybody?
Yeah, every single client. Obviously doing it for almost 10 years. Every single client, after I wait until they buy their images, we go through the whole reveal and let her look at her images, decide what she's going to buy. And then I ask her, can I share any images? And usually they go, oh God, I don't know. And then I say, okay, well, let's look at the ones you bought. I pull them up. I just pull them up with them. And I say, what about this one? Can I share this one? You can't see your face. And then they go, oh yeah, actually that one's okay. So usually what happens is if they buy 20 images, they usually let me share anywhere from 5 to 10. And then I just put them in a separate folder, and that's what I keep separately and know that I can share, and I do it right in front of them, and it's fine. So most women say no right away, and then when I ask them specifically, most women will let me share at least 1 or 2. So do that every single time.
And it's a good thing to get in the habit of doing, I think. And again, some people are afraid to do it because they're afraid of rejection, or people, and people are going to say no, and that's okay. And you may have a really nice photo. I'm afraid to ask her. She's going to say no. And I think, too, it's best to wait till afterwards, not before. Like when you have someone coming in and they're nervous and bombarding them. I'm going to use these photos because you're right. They're a little on edge to begin with.
Yeah, let them see it first and realize how great they look.
They're having a tough time processing what's going on, let alone you asking them to use a bunch of these photos. They don't know what they're getting themselves into.
Exactly.
So, but afterwards, after everything's fixed up and they're like, ooh, this is really pretty. And you'll be surprised. There's a lot of people. You may not find like teachers or stuff like that, people who can't, but you know, there will be people, no problems. And you just make that a part of your workflow at the end of it. Say, oh, this is really pretty. Do you mind if we use this one or this one? And
a lot of times, I think if you plan for it and make sure when you do your shoot, you take some anonymous shots. Like everyone loves to have a beautiful detailed shot of their bra or their cleavage or whatever. And if their face isn't in it, pretty much they're going to let you use that shot. And also I almost always take a portrait, like a traditional portrait / headshot, almost every single time usually at the end when they're more relaxed after the session. So you get a really good connection and a great photo, and they'll let you show that almost every time. They'll usually switch it over to their profile picture. So yeah, you know, almost everybody in my group, I scroll through, I'm like, that's my photo, that's my photo, that's my photo. So
yeah, I do that too. And I tell the women all to come in to bring dresses or something to take pictures. Yeah. Because I do that usually at the beginning because it gets people used to the process kind of a little bit. And they're like, oh, do I have to bring a dress? And those are the photos that actually use up getting the most mileage, like you said, because people use them online.
And you can use them and they can use them, yeah. Most women don't, you take family portraits and they post all the images online. It's so great. Look at the photos that this photographer took of me, and you get referrals. But for Boudoir, we have a bit of a challenge because even if they let us share the anonymous ones, it's very rare that a woman is going to go, look at this beautiful portrait of my cleavage, or whatever, that they don't usually post that. So if there's a portrait in there, I would definitely recommend taking a portrait because they'll share that at least, right?
Yeah,
for sure.
Good information that we got here today. It's like it's going to take me like a week and a half to get all through this. So I'm going to have to start working on some of these things, but it is tricky. And I think you could talk literally hours and hours about getting started and the things that you need to do. And the hard part about photography is it isn't just the photography part. There is the business part. There is the psychology part, the sales part, dealing with women, it's so involved, and I think in some cases too, you just need to have that kind of a personality that people seem at ease with, and there's a lot to it, and we just scratched the surface of a few of these kind of items today.
Sure.
There's much more to learn about this, but I'm not going to keep you here all day.
I could talk all day, but
I know I could too. That's probably not a good thing. We're both losing our voices
I
like
know,
after an
my
hour.
goodness.
We have to train.
Yeah.
We have to train for. I'm sitting here drinking like Snapple and hitting my mute button and coughing.
oh
just
my
like,
goodness. Oh, your mute button. That's what I should.
Yeah, see, I have a little mute button so that way I can cough.
I should have done that. I'm sorry.
Or if I'm typing something, I didn't hear your clicks, but I didn't hear anything there.
Yeah.
And that way I can.
Okay, that's good.
I just got.
Well, next time, I'm sorry. And now poor Michael has to edit out some of my throat clearing. So sorry about that.
No, but that's easy. That's easy to do because I could just splice that. It may not sound the best, but I can splice through that. I'm no master editor. But before we go,
Yes.
I do want to talk a little bit about profitable portraits and what's going on there, what's going on in the show, what we get there, where we can find you, and what's going on with profitable portraits.
Awesome. I know it's alliteration. I do love alliteration, but it's kind of a mouthful, especially when you say profitable portraits podcasts. A lot of P's in there.
I can't do that.
Yeah, I know. I kind of regret the name sometimes when I try to say it on my podcast. So that's for obviously portrait photographers.
Not just
boudoir. Boudoir is portrait, right? So the business that I teach will work for any portrait photographer. If you're a wedding photographer, that's different.
Okay.
If you're a commercial photographer, it's different. That's not my jam. But portraits/boudoir, yes. So I have lots of information in my podcast, and my website is profitableportraits.com. You can find a link to the podcast there as well. And I actually have, the course that I teach is a full business course, and I'm launching it again. I'm not sure when this episode will air, but in July, I'm launching it again. So you can find out more information on my website there as well. So
if I want to learn about how to get involved in portrait business and make some money, I can come and see you.
Absolutely, yes.
And we're going to go. And they online videos or is it online course?
No, I do things a little differently than most educators. And what I'm doing is I teach it live. So you show up on a Monday and I teach the lesson with you live. And then on Thursday, we come in and we do a live Q&A. So you go through the work, you listen to me live, you have a little bit of homework, like your cost of doing business. We go through that whole thing, the spreadsheets. And then on the next one, you can ask me questions about that module. And then the following week, we go through pricing and we redo all your pricing, and then I can go through your pricing. So
it's like one-on-one
mentoring
personal.
in online. Yeah. Because I think that helps, the feedback I got from all my students it's way better to have you live as opposed to going here, watch the videos, because then it's something that I'll do it later and then you never get to it. So
there's like a curriculum that week 1 is this, week 2 is this, and you'll cover, and they can interact with you and ask questions. That's how you got to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, you're paying money for it. So why wouldn't I be there for you to help you through? So it's 8. Well, it's been 9 weeks, but I'm trying to get it to 8. So it's 8 weeks of lessons and Q&As, and then you get into a Facebook group that's only for students, past students, and so you can talk about the actual structure, the way I structure it, and you can bounce ideas off each other, and they have a great time in there too.
It's not like you're busy enough; you need to get involved in
I know. I love it, though. I do love it. You're not going to
have any vacation.
And remember,
you're not going to have.
I'm only shooting 1 or 2 times a week. So when I do my lessons, when I'm teaching photographers, I only shoot 1 time a week. So I cut it right back. So it works out.
Fits
yeah, for sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
I wish I had that 10 years ago. I would sign up.
Oh, hindsight, I know, and that's what I said too. I wish I had this 10 years ago, because I would have chopped off that first 5 years of struggle at the beginning before you're making money. So
that's right. And people don't think about that. Yeah. It's that learning curve. And obviously some people are quicker on that, and some people, it takes them a little bit longer, but it's worth whatever the trade-off is. Like I said, whatever it is, if you can start earning, if that's what your goal is, to become a portrait photographer, why wouldn't you jump a couple of years ahead of the people and save that time and take advantage of somebody else's hard-earned knowledge like that? It's worth it.
And what's it worth to you? Is it worth, 500, 5,000? Is it like, what is it worth to you to save yourself 2 years of making no money, right?
And then we can listen to you, right, on your show. How often are you doing your the podcast?
Well, I try to get one out every Friday. That doesn't always happen.
It's a lot of shows.
Yeah, that's a lot of shows. So I may do every other Friday. It's Fridays is when I release them. I do pretty good when I batch them. So I'll do, I think you're doing that too.
Record a couple.
Yeah, just work on a couple in a day and then I have them batch. So I'm doing pretty good so far, but I'm sure I'll drop the ball at some point. But there's a lot of episodes. I don't know. How many do I have? 18 in there now? I don't know. 20.
It's good.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I was working and I stopped and I was like,
Yeah.
And I did that. And she's on to something. So it's worth listening to. It's a good show.
Thank you.
And you're talking about some things that people need to know there as well, too. It's not just
Yeah, I don't have a lot of fluff in there. That's one of the things that people like. They're like, you get in, you get to the point, and then you're done. I'm like, do this, do that. This works. Thanks for joining me. So some of them are only 10 minutes long. Some are a little longer.
We're a good woman to know. This is good information.
Yeah, for sure.
On there. So that was quite a show. We talked to Tanya today, learned a little bit about getting started in Boudoir. It's a lot of work, I think, at the beginning. But for those people who are interested in this thing, there really can be a payoff if you're getting involved in it. The opportunities are there to make money.
For sure.
You just have to be smart about it. You need to go in the right direction. And said learning from somebody who has already been down that path can save you an infinite amount of time and angst.
Yeah. And it's hard, but, you can do hard things. It's okay if it's hard. You can do it.
Right. It takes time. It's not like going to the gym. Like I always say, you don't go to the gym once and lift weights for a day and become huge like me.
And there's lots of times you don't want to do it, but you do it anyway. So you can stay healthy, stay in shape. Same with your business.
But in the end, it's worth it.
It is.
And those who have the dedication and they really want to put in and you're exactly right. What you were talking about earlier, it's like golf. You don't wake up one morning, roll down to like a Dick's Sporting Goods and say, I want the Tiger Woods clubs. And suddenly you're a pro golfer. You can't go to your local PGA and sign up and say, now I'm a pro golfer. It doesn't work that way. It takes a long time. Just like this, it takes a while. And you can get there. You could do it.
Yeah, and my advice would be stop spending money on gear and more cameras and more lenses and more lights and spend money on education. Then make the money.
That's another whole topic for another show. Yeah,
exactly.
And that's another thing because people just don't know. They get caught up in that whole internet thing and they need all these flashing lights and 20 different lenses and the latest camera. And especially with Boudoir, your needs are very, very simple. Yeah. And Boudoir is a very simple form of photography. Yeah. You don't need that, but we'll save that for another discussion. So thank you. And it's like massive thunderstorms outside my windows now. So we're about to get collaborated with, I don't know if you can hear that or not. It's just like thundering like crazy. So about to get attacked by lightning here. But I thank you, Tanya, for coming on today and spending some time.
Absolutely.
Learned a lot today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, welcome. It's a lot of fun. I like talking to you today.
Thanks.
My new friend now. I'm going to sign up too. And I appreciate you taking your time. And just say goodbye to everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Michael, for having me.
Thanks. You're welcome.